a place where people can talk about it openly and feel like it's a safe space without feeling like they're overwhelming people. So throughout the show, if at any point you feel like it's a little too heavy for you or it's not something that you want to hear, it may get a little heavy. I'll tell you that maybe try to stick it out because even though it starts out a little rough, I promise you, make it through it and you'll feel better after the whole show is over. So I'm going to bring in Emoji J, who does the recordings of each show. You guys make sure to fave Emoji J if you have a show that you need him to help you record. He's definitely the man to go to. He uploads the show each Sunday to my YouTube channel. So we're going to bring in Emoji J and get started with the show.
On May 6, 2017, I lost my husband. That sounds so innocuous, doesn't it? I lost my husband. As if somehow I misplaced him. As if I set him down somewhere and forgot to pick him back up. As if I let him out of my sight and forgot the last place I saw him. The truth is, I didn't lose my husband. He died. People always say to me, I don't know how you do this. They don't know just how close you and I have grown. Faith, you are how I push through. Faith, you are how I am okay. Faith, you are the reason I did not give up. Without you, I would have allowed myself to fall short of God's glory. Without you, I would not have trusted God, and what a scary, lonely place that would be. Faith, you are the substance of things hoped for, and the evidence of things not seen. But you are also the source of power and strength that I never knew I needed so much. My faith in God, His promises, His word, are the answers to how I survived this chapter of my life. Without my faith in God, the story would have ended far worse. The pages of my life would have read quite differently. But with my faith, I will continue to push through, because although the grief journey is tough, I also know I will never walk it alone. This is my love letter to you, about my feelings for you, a letter to not giving up, not giving in, and learning to walk by faith every step of the way. May the lessons I've learned, the stories I've shared, and the letters I've written be an inspiration to that broken heart I experienced the day I lost my husband. May my heartbreak be a source of light to help another broken heart find its way out of the darkness that grief creates.
Thank you, Emoji J. So that was my book trailer. And typically we start the show out with me reading a little part from my book myself. So I'll start out reading my book, a part of my book, and then we'll bring our guest on. And our guest today is Man's Not Hot. And I talked to Mans last night. So he has either two letters he may share. He may share a letter about a friend that he lost, or he may share the letter about his dad. Either letter is fine, Mans. Don't feel forced to stick to either one. Either one's fine. So again, the book is called Love Letter to Grief, Learning to Walk by Faith. And I'll tell you guys the reason I wrote this book. So the night my husband passed away, like most of us, is social media has kind of become a place where people feel very they feel almost, I don't know, like they feel like they're obligated to post about people's loved ones after they pass away. And a lot of times people won't be respectful of your timing. So I knew a lot of people were kind of waiting for me to say something so they could voice their concern or voice their love for my husband. So I went ahead and posted what was a letter to him on Facebook. A lot of people read that letter. A lot of people reached out to me. And throughout my grief journey, I would write letters and I would post them on Facebook, just because writing for me was very therapeutic. And every time I posted a letter, I felt like I was getting something out that I needed to say. And a lot of people started reaching out to me like, hey, I hope you're writing a book because the things you're posting are really, really helpful. So I always encourage people to write down how they're feeling, because it gives you something to journal. Like if you write a letter on day 1 or day 30, after you lost someone. You have something to kind of look back on a year later, because sometimes it feels like you don't really make any progress on your grief journey. But if you write something, then you will be able to see how far you've come in the actual journey. So here's a letter I wrote about a month after he passed away. And a lot of you probably wonder, like, why did I title the book Love Letter to Grief? And the reason is because I've always loved writing letters. Me and my husband wrote letters to each other all the time. But grief was one of those things that I had to accept. And I felt like there's not a more intimate way of talking to grief than writing it a love letter. And so the letters were basically my heart being written to kind of help me during my grief journey. So here's one of my letters I wrote. It's titled Dear Grief. Today's inspirational song while walking was I Smile by Kirk Franklin. Sometimes I listen to the lyrics that I've heard 1,000 times, but they just have a new meaning today. I almost gave up, but a power that I can't explain fell from heaven like a shower. I smile. Even though I hurt, see, I smile. I know God is working, so I smile. Even though I've been here for a while, I smile. When I think how much better I'm going to be when it's over, I smile. I woke up early this morning and promised myself I wouldn't allow grief to overtake me. One step at a time. I got up and I went walking, and I reflected immediately after. Over the past few months, I've learned one thing repeatedly. I've heard one thing repeatedly. God won't put more on you than you can bear. Well, I'm a testament that even though we've often been told this in an effort to comfort us, that it just isn't true. The truth is, God does give us more than we can bear, so that we can learn to depend on Him in order to bear it. If we could bear everything and we didn't need Him, what would be the point? In fact, this year, God has repeatedly taken me through storms that were entirely too much for me to handle, way too much for me to bear. And in doing so, He taught me to lean on Him even more. You see, the cards I've been dealt are too much for even the strongest soldier. So I constantly remind myself that I don't have to bear it all. I don't have to weather the storm alone because I'm not walking it alone. God knows I couldn't handle losing my husband the way I have by myself. And He also knew I wouldn't have to. On my saddest days, He soaks up my tears. On my weakest days, He carries me. The past 2 weeks, I haven't felt like walking or even putting on my walking shoes, but this morning I did. Just one step at a time, one foot in front of the next. This morning, I walked outside, trusting God and thanking Him for His constant protection and His reassuring angels that He placed in my life. God knows me so well that He thought enough of me to make sure that my relationship with Him became my priority. The waves will come and they will go. But when the boat is about to tip over, God will calm the waters. He always does. I never drown. The waves never completely cover me. I'm always in His hands. He never fails me. He never leaves me, and He has yet to forsake me. Thank you, God, for being the source of my strength. I trust you. I still hear you, and I will keep walking by faith. So that's a letter that thank you, Mans. So, guys, if you're just coming in, this is Love Letter to Grief. It's a show dedicated to my grief journey. And I'm telling you guys, like, I wrote this book almost 4 years ago now. And every once in a while, I will read something that I wrote myself, and it puts me in a place of just reassurance that I'm going to be okay. And I'm doing things on my own time. And so I haven't been doing the show lately. I didn't realize why, but I think just because I'm coming up on my 5-year mark. I'm less than a month out, and it's a very overwhelming journey. But that part of the book is it just constantly reminds me that, like people always say, oh, God won't put more on you than you can bear, but it's just not true. Like there's going to be things that you can't bear. And that's when you're going to have to literally find a source of a power higher than yourself to push through it. So if Mance is ready, I will bring you into the box. And exactly, simply a song. But I think we've taken it as like the word, and it's not actually even in the Bible, but people constantly tell you that. But I think it's just a way of people trying to reassure you. So people mean well, but it's just like one of those things like, oh, stop telling me that. So we'll bring in our guest and we'll get started with his letter.
Whew. All right, y'all. I know Travel promised y'all that it might get a little heavy. I'm here to tell y'all, I'm here to keep it light
Okay.
because it already got heavy this morning. Travel, you owe me some ice cream and
Okay.
maybe a hug. You owe me some ice cream and a hug, and then maybe some more ice cream.
Got it. And you guys do me a favor, make sure to hit Man's Not Hot with the fave as well. But thank you guys so much for being here.
I want you to know that I woke up this morning and ran into my bathroom bawling my eyes out. Because I got up, started to thinking like, okay, I need to write a letter. And I started to think about stuff, right? And just started bawling. So then I called my sister up. My sister that I'm the closest with, I've got 8 siblings. And my sister that I'm the closest with is 3 years older than me. And I always play like tough guy with her because, you know, I'm prior military. She used to beat up on me as a kid until I was about 15 and I started beating up on her. And so I was always like the Mr. Tough Guy to her. So she was kind of freaking out. She's like, what's wrong with you? What's going on? I was like, nothing. I'm fine. Like, just shut up and let me cry. Damn it.
Yeah.
Like, I'm okay. And I was like, yo, I'm just mad. She's like, what happened? I'm like, nothing happened. I'm just mad. She's like, mad about what? I was like, about Dad. It's like, why was he just so stubborn?
Yeah.
But anyway, and so the thing is, right? Like, sorry, y'all, I'm really kind of jumping right into the middle of the story.
Oh, that's fine.
I don't process things very well. I just compartmentalize, and that's how I deal with things. So I'm gonna go all over the place because that's how my brain works. I've got ADD. My dad passed away 2 months ago back in January, and I have not really dealt with it. I do know I cried a couple times, but that's kind of it. Maybe 2-3 times, which I don't even really think is normal, right? But it's because I've been compartmentalizing, and that's just how I deal with things. Like pretty much ever since Iraq, and because that's what I had to do over there. It was like one of my closest friends in life passed away in Iraq, got blown up in IED, and I got like a day off and then had to go back to work. So it was like real quickly I had to learn to put that crap in a closet and just keep it moving. Like the mission goes on, soldier. You got to keep it moving. And so that's kind of how I operate with life. And I notice it's with so many things. I told my shrink, I treat my head like a castle. I open the door to a room, put things in its own room, close the door, and then keep it moving. So there are things that I just don't process. And so like, I really love your idea about just how you've dealt with grief. You write a letter and you process it over time, because it's a really healthy way of actually addressing all your thoughts and your feelings. And it helps because like, I will tell you, even just the letter I wrote this morning and talking to my sister and crying this morning, and it sounds cheesy and it probably sounds to people like it's not real, but just that maybe all the space of 2 hours this morning, I feel like I've processed so much in those 2 hours that I feel lighter.
No, I think that's very normal. I have a lot of people that come on the show afterwards, we'll talk, and they all say the same thing. Like a lot of times I think the letter makes it reality. And so the that you're having to actually write the letter gives you chills, and it's like, okay, like this really happened. Like, okay, I gotta like actually start something to process it. So I understand it 100%.
Definitely did. To the point where, excuse me, I noticed, I mean, it's just like when certain things with my buddy dying overseas, and among other things that I know I don't process, it's usually something happens like a trigger. And I'm like, oh yeah, this is actually a problem I know I'm going to have to deal with down the road, but I just shun it. The other night I was in somebody's stream and they started playing that Luther, Dance with My Father Again. It's a song I've heard and not really paid too much attention to, but I legit could not handle it and had to leave the stream. And I was like, oh crap. this is not okay. I'm like, well, I guess I'm gonna deal with this at some point. And then when you messaged me last night, I was like, oh man, guess I'm gonna have to deal with this sooner than I thought.
And then
But let's
probably make
start
it better
trying
than
to.
the song I chose to post on the flyer was that song.
I saw it, so I didn't listen to it.
Okay.
But I'm good. I mean, I'm good. Honestly, after this morning, I could now. I could now because I think I faced one of the biggest things, which was so let me give you all a story. So I live in Texas, right? I'm originally from Jamaica, and so my parents used to live in Miami because my dad is a mechanic. He worked for the city of Miami. He used to own his own shop in Jamaica, but they moved to Miami, and he was working for the city of Miami. So my dad was a cool dude. So he was repairing like all kinds of cop cars, which I'm glad because he clued me into a lot of stuff. Apparently, in Miami, and I've realized they do this in a bunch of other big cities. It's like cops, they will take cars that had been like repossessed and repurpose them for cop cars. So he was like, yo, they got hearses, they got like all these cool cars that are cop cars, and you won't know. So anyway, he had retired again, went back home to Jamaica, and they've been there now for years. Him and my mom re-retired, went back home, been there for years. Anyway, that was, I think, in 2012, they retired, went back home. So he had never been a sick guy, had never been hospitalized, never anything. In November, for Thanksgiving, November of last year, when I FaceTime him, I noticed that he looked like he was losing some weight, but I didn't really pay much attention to it because my dad is like a really super healthy guy, like eats really healthy, always working out. Like my dad was a beast at 75. It was doing like pull-ups, get up every morning, do his walk, and is doing like push-up. My dad was like a beast. So I was like, maybe he's doing something new, and so he's losing some weight. So I didn't really pay much attention to it. But I'm like, I wasn't concerned because nobody else talked about it, so I wasn't concerned. Christmas time, I did a FaceTime call because I usually FaceTime him because it's just face. You know, you lose a lot more weight in your body than your face. I wasn't really noticing a lot. Christmas time, though, I was like, no, his face looks thin. And so around the same time, my sister was like, oh, she had to take him to this appointment to colonoscopy. And I'm like, what's going on? So she's like, well, she's been taking him to a bunch of doctor's appointments. He's been losing weight unexplainably, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, why has nobody been brought this to my attention? Well, she's like, well, he doesn't want you to be worried. And so he's been trying to deal with it. So then I'm like, okay, I need to know what's going on because he does not look good. And I work in the medical field. So I'm like, this doesn't look good. This is really concerning to me. Especially when it feels like new news. So this was legit Christmas Day. So I was saying, okay, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to fly you up to Houston because you've got some of the best medical care in Houston. And I'm like, I'm going to fly up to Houston. It was Christmas weekend, and I'm like, it's going to be a busy travel weekend. The following weekend was going to be New Year's. And so I'm like, that's probably going to be busy travel time as well. So I'm like, how about we plan for the 7th, which would have been the weekend after. And he was like, okay, that sounds good, da-da-da. Monday morning, which would have been 2 days after Christmas, my mom called me and was like, I don't think your dad can make it until the 7th. I'm like, what? She's like, he can't get up out of bed. So already I call up Delta, and I was like, hey, I need to look up some flights. I'm just going to use the app, but I'm going to need a flight real soon to Jamaica. And then I start looking on my leave stuff for work, because I'm like, yo, I need to go home ASAP, like tomorrow or today. So I look up flights, and then I'm starting to look up the requirements because I wasn't planning on doing any international travel because of COVID. And I realized that I couldn't travel same day because I would need to go get a COVID test and all this stuff. And we're like, my mom called me like right when I started my work day at 8 o'clock because I had just got to work. And then the first flight that I could have catch was going to be about noon. So I'm like, that's 4 hours for me to go run, do a COVID test, all that. It wouldn't work for today, but I can leave tomorrow. So I legit just left work, did all I needed to do to fly out the next day. Fly out the next day and made an appointment for him there so I could figure out what was going on. When we went to the doctor with him the next day, so I was in Jamaica. So if anybody I remember, I went to Jamaica like the end of December into that first week of January. This was why. So I went to the doc. The doc was like, yeah, he was here, had an appointment back in October. And between that appointment in October to now, 2 months ago, he has lost 40 pounds. I'm like, yo, this is crazy. And my dad was paper thin. Like, he was usually a smaller guy, but he was never that skinny. So in my mind, I'm thinking about some of my patients, and I'm like, this isn't good. I was already thinking, this looks like cancer. Something's going on, da-da-da. Anyway, they were trying to start some tests, and I'm still thinking, I'm just going to fly you back up with me and get you set up with primary care and start to figure out what was going on. So that's what I did. 1 week. So I was there for a week, brought him up to Houston. And then a week after we came up here, we got to the hospital. And because he was in so much pain, we couldn't wait for the primary care appointment. I was like, I'm taking you to the ER, dude. So
Wow.
I took him to the ER. And that's where they ran some tests and came back, he's got pancreatic cancer.
Wow.
And he already got Mets, like Mets to the liver and Mets to some other places. I'm like, are you kidding me right now? So my dad being my dad. So at first I was like, of course we're all overwhelmed, right, with this news.
Mm-hmm.
And my dad being my dad, because my dad is like me. Well, I guess I'm like my dad. He's kind of a comedian. He's like, well, life is like a cycle. So I'm just at the end of my cycle. And I'm like, okay, Dad. yeah. He's a comedian. He doesn't mix words. So the oncologist is like, well, let's right, Bunny. The oncologist is all like, well, let's see what kind of options we have, and da 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 da. We're gonna do a biopsy to see if there are any treatment options. And my dad is like, listen, doc, we're gonna go around in a circle, right? And then we're still gonna end up right where we are. What's the end game?
Wow.
I'm like, well, in my mind, I'm like, well, he kind of has a point. like he's like, pretty much, he's like, y'all just wasted my time. I'm like, well, you kind of got a point. So he says to me, he's like, look, I just don't want to be in any pain. Mm-hmm. So if I can come back to your home and pass peacefully, I'm good with that. I'm like, of course. Like, if your dying wish is to just come to my house and not be in pain, of course, that's fine. Mm-hmm. So we decided to just have him get discharged to my house on hospice. And it was after he was in the hospital for a week. Everything like legit happens in 1 week, almost 1 week to the day. Everything from when I went to Jamaica, I was there for a week. We got back here to my house in Houston, and it was a week from we got back that we went to the hospital, to the ER. Then it was 1 week in the hospital. Then we got home. It was 1 week from being home to when he passed away. It was crazy. So it was a month from when I went to Jamaica that he passed away. It was so quick.
Wow.
Which in a way was kind of helpful, because that last part of it where it was the most like excruciating pain, he didn't have to suffer that much, because it was starting to get addressed. But then I came to realize, like, he was in some pain for quite some time, right, and was just stubborn. Which at this hindsight 2020 was the thing that I think upset me a little bit, because I was like, man, dude, you were there suffering in pain and wasn't saying anything because you're stubborn.
Yeah.
But I'm like, what are you gonna do? No, especially at this point, nothing. That was one of the conversations I was having this morning with my sister. I was like, I'm not gonna lie, I was a little bit upset that he was holding, because she's like, when he flew here, she's like, dude, I think he kind of had some idea. She's like, I found papers, old school, right? She's like, I found papers in his bedside table with some writing on it about cancer, like he was doing research into cancer. And I'm like,
yeah.
But he's stubborn.
Mm-hmm.
So it's that age group, and then culturally, my dad was kind of a stubborn guy where he's very private, and he is stubborn to a fault. So and I know I've got some of the same traits, so I kind of get it.
Yeah.
But then, yeah, Bunny, I'm upset about him not addressing some of the early signs. But also, to be honest, with that type of cancer, it's one of the worst. Pancreatic cancer is one of the worst. You usually don't start seeing signs until it's at a late stage where it's metastasized. So with him and his his mindset, and that's what I was saying to my sister this morning too, was like him and his mindset, he did not want treatment. So he would have said the same thing. He's like, we're gonna go around the circle and still end up back here. So what's the end game? Which, to be honest, I'm kind of like him in the same way. Like, even though yes, I'm a young guy, and so that's what I think. The only difference with me and him is because I'm young and my kids are still young.
Mhm.
That's the only difference why I would give it a try, is because my kids are still young. Because on the back end of it, being in healthcare, I've seen what a lot of cancer treatments do to the body. That was one of the most mind blowing things to me when I was in school. Was when I was in my cadaver lab, one of our cadavers went through chemo, and when I saw what chemotherapy did to that cadaver, I was like, hell to the no, because it's indiscriminate, right? But anyway, yeah, it was. I'm not gonna lie, it was kind of rough, but the good thing was that, and I'll get to that like when I go through my letter. The good thing was that I've got such a wealth of experiences and life lessons and good memories with my dad that I have no regrets, because I'm blessed. Like, I realize how blessed I was. Like, I grew up in a home with both my parents and had my dad. As a matter of fact, so I have 8 siblings. Only 3 of us is with the same mom, with his wife. So I've got 5 siblings out there that did not grow up in our household with my dad. So I'm like, I'm really lucky. I'm one of the lucky siblings. And even them, like, when I hear, because now, so one of the biggest things was he wanted us all as siblings to get together and really have a better relationship. So I created this group on WhatsApp with all of us, to including him, like in his last month. And he was so happy. Like, we had this WhatsApp call with all 8 of us and him and the oldest grandkids. And he was just crying, like, so happy to have us all there on WhatsApp doing the video calls. And so, like, now, every now and again, all the kids will all chat on WhatsApp. And it's been such a really good thing. But it made me realize just how blessed I was, because I grew up in the household with him. And when I hear them talk about him and they didn't even grow up in the household, I was just like, man, first of all, man, my dad was an awesome dude. But second of all, man, how lucky am I that I actually grew up in the household, you know? So those are the things that I'm like, instead of being resentful or mad about something I couldn't control, like, what's the point in holding on to that? Like, I've got nothing bad that I'm holding on to.
Yeah, I agree with. So Bunny said that when she lost her grandmother to cancer, she was upset because she wanted more time, but no more time would have been enough. I agree. Like, a lot of times, I feel like when people are dealing with grief and they share stories, it's like, oh well, man, at least you got to be by his side, and at least you got to watch him those last couple of months or those last couple of weeks or days. But that's not consoling to a person that lost someone, regardless, because if you got to spend an extra month, an extra week, an extra hour, or no time, it doesn't help it. Like, the fact that you still lost someone that you needed and wanted to be there with you. So it doesn't make the journey easy.
Y'all know I'm a clown. So it's like a battle on here. Somebody snipes a rose, somebody snipes a hard eyes. It wasn't enough. No more time would have been enough, because you still would have wanted more. Seriously, you still would have wanted more. Yeah, because I was actually even thinking that. I'm like, sometimes I'm like, yo, the only thing I wish was, like, I had taken more videos or I had taken more pictures. But in reality, like you say, Bunny, I still would have always wanted more. But the good thing is that I have a lot of memories. I have a lot of experiences. I did have a lot of that. So the good thing is I get to work with what I did have and build that legacy.
Thanks. So, you guys, if you're just coming in, welcome to Love Letter to Grief, a show that's dedicated to helping us on our grief journey. Mans is in the box avoiding his letter. And so that's why he's talking about everything that happened instead of sharing the letter. But we're going to.
No, I am going to share the letter. I am going to share. I didn't realize that you were ready. I thought you were going to tell me when I need to share it. I'm sharing the letter. And see, Hansy just said that at some point she's also going to be on this show. Okay, Hansy, I see you.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow, Hansy. Yeah, if you guys are interested in being on the show, my IG is in my bio. If you click on my name and scroll down, my IG is right there. Follow me on IG, send me a message, let me know that you want to be on the show. And I'm going to try to get back to having the show every single Sunday. The show starts usually at 11 a.m. EST. And I have one guest every show, so would love to have you.
All right, so I'm going to read this letter. Dear Dad, first, I am going to say I realized that I was a little mad at you for how this all played out. Less because you're gone and more because of how stubborn you were. But hey, it's okay. We are who we are, and I know I'm stubborn too. So who am I to judge? Oh, by the way, first things first, we've decided on a new nickname for you, the lecturer. And it fits because you're always lecturing someone, and we all miss that. I love you, man, and I miss you. But I am very happy for the 39 plus years we had and all the lectures and life lessons I had. I've learned a lot from you that I've come to appreciate more than words can ever explain. About life, about cars, about women, about investing, about geopolitics, about so many different things. I am just forever grateful that you were my dad and I had you for as long as I did. You've set a pretty high bar for me, and I plan to do that and more, raising that bar for my sons. I could go on, but Travel Base Show will eventually end, and I would eventually need to stop talking about being a junior lecturer. It hurt a lot watching you in pain, and even more when I started trying to process that you were gone. Because at first, I started to think of the should haves, could haves, and what ifs. But no, you wouldn't want me to have regrets, and to be honest, I really don't have any. Sure, I wish I had more time with you. Sure, I wish there were things I had done different. Took more photos and recorded more videos of us, but I've got enough of those and enough memories that will be cherished. I love you, Dad, and your legacy is definitely living on. Oh, hey, by the way, I've decided that when I buy that Porsche, it's going to be bright yellow.
Okay, so I feel like you're one of those people that uses your humor to help you with your grief journey, which I think is a great thing. I think it's very normal. So I sense that with you and I feel you. So I know you shared a little bit of your backstory with us, but it's like one thing I like to ask people is when you share your letter about someone that you've lost, we get to understand like that side of the loss, but like, and you kind of touched on it a little bit, but explain to us why we missed out on knowing a great person. Like, what was it about your dad that made him him?
The nickname that came up after the lecturer. Mm-hmm. So my dad was, and I'll touch a little bit about it. When I said, and I'm glad that it's not featured because I can actually give a quote. The life lessons I've learned. He's taught me a lot about life, about cars, about women, about investing, about geopolitics, about so many different things. We call him the lecturer because my dad was always teaching. Mm-hmm. And funny story, my dad stopped school after the 5th grade, but he was so intelligent because he read a lot. If you met my dad, you'd never know that he wasn't like a university grad. Mm-hmm. Plus, he ran a successful business, you know, so you'd never know that dude only went to school as far as the 5th grade. So he taught me personally a lot of things. And I think it was because he was always a seeker of knowledge. And so he was smart in a lot of things. especially with politics. Good Lord. And that's where I get it from. I'm big into the news, always watching the news, always talking about politics. I get that from my dad. Um, so after I got divorced from my first marriage, I had this girlfriend who was a little firecracker. She was a little bit crazy. And when I brought her to my parents for Thanksgiving, um, she, I don't remember what it was that she was doing. And I was asking my dad something about her, and he said, let me tell you something. Any woman you're gonna meet, no matter who she is, how beautiful she is, because this girl was like hot, smoking hot. He said, every woman have two things: pum pum and problems. No matter how pretty she is, no matter whatever she got going on, she's gonna have those two things. And it holds true. But it holds true for a dude too. Like they're gonna have good or bad, they're gonna have that thing, and they're gonna come with their own kind of problems. So you're just gonna have to find out whether or not the problems they have you can work with it.
Mhm.
And to be honest, it was solid advice because for me it was like learning to know that those things aside, can this person work for me?
Mhm.
I'm never gonna find, because it was like he was like trying to say, you're never gonna find a perfect person, dude. So stop comparing this person with your ex-wife. Stop trying to think you're gonna see, oh, this person's beautiful, but they don't have this. This person is this, but they don't have this. Like just trying to find something that you think will work for you. Because everybody's got problems. Nobody is perfect. Just things like that. And one of the things too that I learned from him, and I've realized a lot since I've been on this app, which is kind of mind blowing to me. My dad was he was the type of person that he doesn't let things bother him. So, you know how a lot of people can be thin skinned?
Mhm.
It's helped me in a way where people try to troll the crap out of you on here. And I've literally learned to let that stuff roll
Mhm.
to the point where I'll talk to them now. I'll be like, yo, so hopefully you feel great after saying something like that. And hopefully your mama will be proud of you. Hey, good job. Or I'll say some stuff like, man, you need to work on your roasting game or your comedy because that sucked.
Mhm.
Like, but it's really not affecting me, and they were hoping for a rise. But I get that. Literally, I get that from my dad because he is just that person where it's just like he doesn't let stuff get to him,
Mhm.
and I see it as a strength because it's not always easy, and it's also kind of a learned thing. So it's the type of person where I've learned so much from him, and I've realized a lot of that more after the fact that he's gone, and realizing just how much I've learned from him.
Mhm.
That having him was a good thing for me, and having him as long as I did was a really good thing for me. But my dad was a lecturer.
Mhm.
He'll teach you some life lessons
Right. Now I know you talked about briefly about your best friend that you lost, and you were saying how you normally compartmentalize everything. Do you feel like that has helped you, or like kind of stalled you in this in your process?
both, both,
Hmm.
both. And I actually want to save that one for another show.
Yeah. No, I'm not asking
Oh
about
no, no,
him.
no.
I just
Yeah.
mean
Oh, okay.
the compartmentalizing part of it.
Both, and I'll tell you why. It's helped me to be able to continue to function, but it's
Hmm.
definitely stalled me. It's definitely
Hmm.
stalled me to where. So, just let me come right out and say, I got back from Iraq November of 2006,
Hmm.
and I still have not like actively tried to deal with PTSD stuff.
Hmm.
So I'll give you an example. We're in March, so at the beginning of March, I was talking to uh, a psychologist from the VA, and she wanted to start doing some trauma work, and I
Hmm.
put it off again until I think August. I've been putting it off since 2015.
Hmm.
So it's I've decided though, because I've seen where PTSD has affected so many other facets of my life, that I'm
Hmm.
not putting it off past this year for real. But I've also seen where, because I compartmentalize, I am able to, I wouldn't say effectively, but half-assedly handle other things in life
Hmm.
because I compartmentalize.
Yeah.
so I can still function. Like I can still go complete my MBA. I can still do other things, but not as good as I probably would have been able to do
Mhm.
if I had taken care of this.
Right. Yeah. Well, so the thing with me, I always feel like just in talking to different people, no matter where they are in their journey, like you have people who, they process it immediately after, and you have people who, aren't ready to process, or they kind of, like you say, you put it off. And the thing that's always interesting to me is no matter when you choose to really like dive into it, it's going to take you right back to day one. So
Hmm.
you're going to, like, I
Oh, I
always
know.
tell people, like, sometimes people, and not this is not just geared toward you, but just in general,
Oh yeah.
some people will say, well, I'm just not ready to deal with it. And I always tell people, you don't really have to deal with it. It's going to deal with you. And like, I think that's just like how your body, at some point, like if you don't get enough sleep, your body will crash. The
I was
same
gonna
thing.
use the same analogy.
Yeah, like if you don't deal with it head on, it's going to affect every single aspect of your life, to the point where at some point, that's why when I wrote the book about it being a love letter, it was more so me just accepting it right there. Like the day he passed away and I was right there, I accepted it immediately. I was like, okay, I get it. Like, come on, like I'm holding your hand, let's do this. Like I see this is what we have to do.
I have to. Yeah.
So I feel like, the thing is, it's going to take you back to day one. And so whether you choose to process it, right out or not, you're still going to have
Oh,
to
I
go through
know.
all the stages of dealing with it. So I think,
I'll be honest with you. That's a big part of why I have not, for
Mhm.
years, dealt with it. So, which is sad. I went to, I left there in 2020. So I think it was probably like 2018.
Mhm.
I went to Boston to his house and
Mhm.
I hung out with his wife and his kids.
Mhm.
And that took a lot out of me, to where
Mhm.
even like his wife was talking with me and was like, you know, don't hold on to guilt and don't blame yourself, because what happened was not your fault and all this stuff. And I'm just like that even made me feel bad. I'm like, here's the dude's wife trying to
Yeah.
help you process. Like,
But it's like that. A lot of times it's the person that's closest to the loss that has to help others process it. Like, I remember one of my best friends, when she lost her son, I remember at the funeral, she was like literally console, like, how they do like the encouraging words, or hey, you have somebody
mhm.
come in. Like, she was there encouraging all of us, and she lost her son when he was 16. And I remember watching her and I was thinking,
Isn't that weird? She's the one helping everybody
yeah,
else.
I was
Yeah.
like, how crazy is it that in a space where we all should be helping her, she's the one that's consoling the entire funeral service. So I think that's very common though.
Mhm. It is.
So do you feel like, and I know, like you say, you hadn't really been processing it, or having to do so, but I'm sure, like you say, you're talking to your sister this morning kind of helped you start the process with
Oh
it.
yeah.
Hmm.
Oh yeah. That was really helpful. I'm not even gonna lie. Like, it's funny because like my 5-year-old heard me in here crying and he was like to his mom like, "What is wrong with dad? Is he mad?" And she's like, "No, I think he's just sad." Because like I was legit like howling, uncontrollably crying,
Hmm.
and it's just like I woke up and I started to think about everything, trying to plan what I'm gonna write about, and it forced me to think about it, because
Hmm.
that's how I had been ineffectively dealing with it, is not thinking about it.
Yeah.
It's just
I always, like, I tell people, like, I think it's such a, and like sometimes I know we kind of shy away from like not wanting our kids to like see us like that or hear us like that.
oh no,
But
I don't care.
yeah,
I think it's a good
but a
thing
lot of
because
people, yeah, a lot of
they
people
need to
are
learn.
nervous about it. But I tell people, can you imagine these little brains thinking like how they're feeling so confused and overwhelmed and emotional and sad and all these feelings, and they never see you process. They're thinking like, well, what's wrong with me? If I never see like the person who's supposed to be in charge, if they're not processing it, then what's wrong with me that I want to cry or I'm sad? So I commend
Well,
you for not shying away from it, letting your kids hear you be emotional, because
it's not even about me trying to do that. So I will tell it's because I had no control over it. So one of the things, right? One of the symptoms from PTSD is I'm emotionally unavailable,
Mm-hmm.
which it sucks and it's weird because it's actually really, it makes life really tough because people think I'm an asshole because of it. Because things will happen. Like, okay, I'll give you the perfect example. When before my pops actually passed, my mom had flown up and she was here too, trying to help take care of him.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the nights, I'd probably say like a week or so before he passed, my
Mm-hmm.
mom broke down. I had never seen my mom break down. It's broke down. I was crying, like inconsolably crying. And I was just like there.
Mm-hmm.
It seems cold. And like I was hurting for her inside, but I had zero expression. Like in a situation where I probably should be, hugging and consoling her and maybe even crying too, I was just there and cold. And it's so like I talked to my shrink about it and she's like, it's a PTSD thing. Like even with interacting with, say, a spouse or a friend or whatever, very cold, and it's a big PTSD thing. One of the reasons why I'm like, yep, I'm gonna go deal with that, take care of that, and get treatment because that emotion part of it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, well, Bunny, you're right. It's a tough thing. So if because I tell you what, if it was something that I wouldn't hide it from my sons to say, oh, I don't want to show them emotion. I would never do that because I
Mm-hmm.
want my kids to be real people.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely, I want them to be real people. Like
Yeah.
it's okay. I've told them, and I think because like they see how without emotion I am, and sometimes feel like they need to be tough, and I'm like, no, buddy, it's okay to cry. Like it
Mm-hmm.
is definitely okay to cry. Feel
Yeah.
your feelings. Like it's okay to be sad. It's okay to be upset. It's okay to cry.
Yeah. With me, when I started grief counseling, we started about a month after, and my daughter was 10. And the thing that the place I went to, of course, everybody had a different counselor. So I was talking to someone, and she had a completely different person. And we'd meet at the end and talk about what she was going through. And I've always really was really open with her and trying to get her to express herself. And they do all these things of teaching kids how to use arts and crafts to process what they're going through and verbalize it because sometimes they can't quite find the words.
Right.
But even at 10, I feel like she had a really good hands on like what grief meant and how she was processing it. And even to this day, oh wow, Hansi, that's crazy. The interesting thing is when I started grief counseling, I was 37. I mean, I was 27 and I'm going crazy. I was not 27. I was 34. I'm literally going crazy. But she was when I went there, everyone that I met, we all had 10-year-olds. It was just a line. Like it was just the stars lining up. Like it was like 4 other moms. We all had 10-year-olds. And so being able to process grief with them and their 10-year-olds was very, very helpful because they were all dealing with it different. And so even to this day, like she has days where she has mental health days. Like if she wakes up one morning and she's like, I don't want to go to school. I don't push it. I'm like, because I know how I have those days. Some days I don't
Right.
want to get up and do anything. So I'm like, you know what? She's a just because she's a kid doesn't mean she doesn't need time to
Right.
process herself. So she wakes up and she's having like a not so good day. Okay, you get a grief day. You can stay home. We can watch movies. You can just sleep in. You can be yourself. We can go outside. It's like, because we have to remember that as tough as it is for us, and I mean, you know how old you are and how you're processing things and
Right.
not processing things. Think about these little brains who
I
don't
know.
even have the full capacity to understand so many things. So we have to, in our grief, we have to kind of remember the little people that are like also trying to process it.
As
And it's
well.
even like you mentioned about your dad. You had your dad living with him, but some of your siblings didn't. It's sometimes you think, oh well, going through this thing, like these are my siblings. This is my mom. Like, but everybody's going to process it different because everybody's relationship is different. So it's always interesting. Like sometimes, like you end up working through grief with different people. Sometimes not even the people you assume that will be able to help you.
Listen, even so, like I think even like my 5-year-old, watching my 5-year-old deal with it was
Mm-hmm.
interesting.
Yeah.
Because he when the morning after we told him, like cried.
Mm.
That was his grandfather. He cried, and I was like, man,
Kids love their grandparents. Love
that's tough. Yeah.
such a good relationship for sure.
Like, and even the 3-year-old, like, he didn't cry, but he was like really mad, just like mad.
Mhm.
Why can I go say hi to grandpa? I was like, because grandpa's gone. He's not here.
Yeah.
No, and I can't call him. No. And like trying to explain that to a 3-year-old
Right.
is weird and it's tough.
Mm-hmm.
It's tough, but he's like kind of sort of getting it.
Mm-hmm.
5-year-old understands it though, and he occasionally, like, now he's getting to the point where he is, I think, processing it better. But initially, like, he was torn up, and
Mm-hmm.
it's difficult. He was so torn up. The 5-year-old understands, and he's torn up because see, the 5-year-old was much younger when my wife's mom had passed away.
Mm-hmm.
But this he actually gets, and he, man,
Yeah.
which that too, crazy story. So like I said, yeah, my dad was actually here and passed on hospice, right? So the night before he passed, when we were trying to get him comfortable, giving him pain meds, my 5-year-old had come in to tell him good night and was like counting for him
Mm-hmm.
by tens, like showing off to grandpa that he can count by tens. And that
Mhm.
was like my dad's last interaction. It was
Wow.
saying good night to my 5-year-old.
Wow. Yeah, and Bunny made a, I mean, not yeah, Bunny made a good point. She was saying she couldn't imagine her 9-year-old having to deal with something like that to go through losing someone. And then
Especially her, yeah.
Heffany made a good point. So about kids, like sometimes we don't give them enough credit. Like they actually are so resilient and they actually can process it. And I remember when I had my daughter, I really started paying attention to Disney movies. And I was amazed at like we could play a game at how many Disney movies had a parent that was dead. It is like, oh, it is overwhelming at how many of the parents on Disney movies are not alive. And so I don't feel like, and I used to think like, oh well, Walt Disney must have like lost his parents early on because this is the only way I can explain why he's trying to help children process grief, but he did it. But it's very interesting that they start seeing that so early on that it's telling. But I mean, kids are so resilient. Sometimes like you can just ask like, how are you feeling? And they'll say something to you that will make you sit there like how is this little brain working like that? So yeah, like I think that the fact that you had your 5-year-old was able to take it in and like really process and go through the emotions of it is really good. I mean, it shows that you guys are really teaching him a healthy balance of dealing with his emotions.
Yes, you had to. Definitely. I think, because I think this age and this stage and how you help them process this stuff is really what it's like the building blocks of who they'll be and how strong they'll be and how resilient they'll be as older adults. So it's also why I'm like, even though I can be a clown in regards to my emotions, I'm like, no, dude, process your stuff. And also why I don't try to hide. Like this morning when I was emotional and sad and you heard me, I'm like, no, you're fine. You can come in. That is just sad, bro. That is just sad.
And it's such a healthy thing because I mean, if you guys are just coming in, welcome to Love Letter to Grief. This is a show dedicated to my grief journey as well as my friends I've connected with on this app and just kind of helping each other go through grief and process in a very healthy way. Because the thing I remember when I was going through grief counseling, my counselor was saying that the thing about kids is as long as they can look at you and feel safe, they're able to grieve in a better way. So I think it's so powerful that our kids are able to see us like crying because like here's this person that they probably see as the strongest person in the world. The one who fixes everything. And if I can see dad telling me it's okay, I'm just really sad. I miss your grandpa. Like, that I think that is so powerful because when they're going through their own things, they're like, well, it's okay. Like I'm not, because you feel when you're grieving, you feel like you're going crazy. No better way to explain it. So I think just having a person that you can just kind of okay. I remember that day I saw dad, he was crying. And as he grows up, I feel like that's going to be something that's going to really help him like ground himself with dealing with his emotions.
Oh yeah. Because it's so like of course, y'all know kids wake up early as heck. If you got kids, you know this. And so he was already up and I was in my room. I woke up thinking about coming on this show. I woke up and my thoughts were, I woke up thinking about this prep and what I'm going to be doing on the show, and just started bawling because I hadn't really been thinking about it, and like uncontrollably bawling, and he could hear me. And I was just like, buddy, Daddy's okay. I was just thinking about Grandpa, and I got really sad. I'm all right though. It's okay.
Yeah. Funny said her daughter was 7 when her grandmother passed, and it was so hard for her. My son was 2, so he doesn't remember. And, you know, another thing,
Stephanie
like,
was saying her daughter lost her dad at age 10 as well. Just talking
wow.
about it help. Talking about it absolutely helps. I absolutely think it helps.
And even allow, like, there's so many things that you know, when my daughter did grief counseling that they talked about to help kids, like writing down something. And the thing that I found most resilient about children, a lot of them don't deal with grief in past tense. Like if you have a child or someone who's lost someone and they still talk to them, or they talk to them like they're still there, it's very healthy. And so I thought that was so interesting. I've done a lot of research, and I found out that's a thing that a lot of kids do. It's like, oh, well, my dad is. They don't do the past tense thing. So I think it's very interesting. My daughter is scared of grief counseling, like she's going to be the only one. And that's the thing about grief counseling. It helps you to realize you're not the only one.
I would say if you can encourage her to at least try it, try it to say, see if it might help. And then if you don't like it, then you don't have to do it, but at least try it.
But for kids, it's not even like, it's not intensive. It's not like
I know.
We sit down and they ask us questions. We just cry on the couch. It's not even like that with kids. With them, it's like they do a little craft. They do some things, and the kid doesn't even realize they're processing it. Like they just have fun with a cool person.
Right.
So it's
but I was saying, I think her daughter's just afraid of the idea, that she's going to be doing grief counseling. So for the buy-in, just say, hey, try it and see if it's something you like. And then if not, I always do that with my kid. I'm like, look, you might not like it. Just try. like this week it was papaya. They're like, it smells like stinky feet. I'm like, all right, fine.
And the thing is also, like I tell people about, when it comes to grief counseling, there's a lot of programs that offer it for free. Like where I stay, there's a grief camp. There's several. I mean, I don't know where here. There's just a lot of things geared toward grief, but there's an actual summer camp that it was a week-long camp, and it was all these kids. They did like a balloon release, but they were out there like fishing and swimming and playing volleyball, but having these small moments where they were talking about their parents. And everyone at this camp lost a parent.
Wow. Yeah.
And so it's, there's programs like that all around, and a lot of them are free. So,
Jojo, I agree. But see, and we were just talking about that. Like with
now.
me,
Okay.
With me, Jojo, is similar. And, holding on to it. I mean, of course, we know that that's also not healthy, but it also changes nothing because you hold on to it. It's still there. I was just saying I do the same thing because that's how I pretend to be functional, is I just leave it and not process it.
Yeah. So I understand. So you're saying she's 19. But you know what? The thing is, like I was telling Mans, like he was saying, he hasn't dealt with the grief of his best friend. Even if it happened years ago, whenever they're ready to process it, they're going to be fine because they're going to process everything that's happened. Your daughter takes breaks. Yeah. And I think that's also very healthy. Like, I don't think you have to just like put a person in grief counseling and keep them there, because especially for kids, I remember my counselor was telling me there's stages of their life where they're going to need to reprocess it. It's like right now, your son is 6. He may reprocess it. And then when he becomes a teenager, he may need to process it again. And once he goes to college, he may need to process it again because your brain is changing and there's new things that you need to kind of take in. I never talked about it. 25 years later, normally.
Listen, y'all, if you are actively in here, and you don't have me faved, I'm going to say, please go ahead, hit my name, hit favorite, come check me out. Trava, I'm going to jump off.
All right, thank you.
Had to do a fave plug.
Yeah, you guys make sure you hit Mans with a favorite. Thank you for being here. I thank you for sharing your letter, sharing your story with us. I really appreciate it. And we'll have you on as soon again when you're ready to do your letter to your best friend.
I will.
Just hit on fave now. Thank you.
All right, one love.
But, and I'm trying to catch all you guys' comments. You guys were putting a lot of things in the comments that I thought were great. And I know I wasn't doing That was so sweet. Thank you, Lay. But I was trying to catch all the comments. Love you too, Lay. But I was trying to catch all the comments. I know I didn't, but I appreciate you guys for being here. I know that talking about grief sometimes can be tough. And it's like one of those things you come like, oh no, I don't want to talk about this. I'm not ready to do this. Like I don't want to cry. Looks, yeah, it does. But it's one, it's just a part of me. Like, I want to normalize talking about grief. I want people to understand that grief is not a 3-day process that your job gives you for bereavement and you come back fixed. It's not, oh, I'm going to go to counseling for 2 months and then I'm going to be okay. Like it is ongoing. You cannot lose someone who means the world to you and be okay in 3 days. It just doesn't happen. And it's going to be ongoing. I always tell people the bigger they love, the bigger the grief. And when it's your person, whether it's a husband like myself, a child, a parent, a sibling, a best friend, like the love that you have for that person, the grief is also a part of that love. It's like an extension of it, because grief is the last act of love you have for someone. So it's okay to talk about it. It's okay to continue to grieve. It's okay to have those really tough days where you're, like you're still trying to process it and get through it. And it's also okay to talk about it. So if anyone is on the show, I hope here today, I hope you heard something between the letter, man's sense of humor, and things that people say in the comments. I hope you heard something that was helpful. And even if you've never gone through grief yourself, maybe you've heard something that can help somebody else as they're going through it, or when it hits you, you have things to help you. Because one thing about it, 2 things for sure, grief is something that's going to touch every single one of us, and it's something that can connect all of us. So I appreciate you guys for being here for Love Letter to Grief. And we'll see you guys next Sunday, 11 a.m. EST. I will be on time for Love Letter to Grief. Thank you, Emoji J, for showing you guys the video. Again, if you want to get my book, message me on IG. My link is in my bio. The book is on Amazon. It is called Take a Picture, Love Letter to Grief, Learning to Walk by Faith. And I will tell you guys, hands down, that if I was not a faithful person, I would not be here, because it was super, super, super tough for me. But that's the one thing that kept me kind of grounded, kept me feel like I was going to be okay. It's like, to me, faith is like this little invisible thing that drops in every time you need it to. It just reassures you that you're going to be okay. So that concludes the show, but I'm still going to hang around. But yeah, thank you guys so much for being here. Thank you, Emoji J, for recording, and you can stop now. I want to try the show, but I haven't really got to grief yet, so don't want to. No, listen, Heffany, most of us cry. I usually cry every Sunday. So no, I've had people who've read letters and it's been very overwhelming, and we cry, but it's sometimes it's such a necessary cry. And the thing is, like, you cry, but I always like once you read the letter, I always ask questions for you that kind of bring you back to a happy memory, because it's like, I want us to understand why we're grieving, but then I also want us to understand why we're grieving that person. So understanding why you love someone, is really important. So that's the part of it that kind of helps you kind of, really focus on like the great memories, the laughs, the things that were really good about the person. So I cry. Yeah, listen, I personally, I have a lot of shows. I'm currently working on my 6th show on this app, and I hands down, this show is the closest to my heart, because I feel like it's the realest, and it is the one that I enjoy the most. I think it's so necessary. I want us to normalize grief. I want us to normalize talking about it and trying to help each other through it. Yeah. And a lot of times people don't think they'll be able to. Like, I have a lot of people who come on the show that they'll message me right before. They're like, I don't think I can do this. And I always tell them, well, send me a copy of your letter prior to the show. And if the show starts and it is too much for you to read it, I'll take over it. But in over a year that I've been doing this show, I've never had someone not be able to finish their letter. They'll stop, but they always are able to get back to it and actually, process it. So yeah. And it's okay like that, because that's how, it's tough. It's one of those things where, grief sucks. It's really hard. It's tough. It's challenging. It makes you feel like you're going crazy, but it's also, I like to talk about it because if there's someone in this stream who's never dealt with it, and when they do, and they wake up going, like, how you wake up when you're in grief and you're like, stuck to the bed, crying, sobbing, you can't function, and you're like, what is wrong with me? Even like you can be 4 or 5